You said something last year with total certainty. Now you believe the opposite. And instead of calling that growth, you are calling it betrayal. Welcome to the Stoic Compass. I am EPICTETUS, and today I am joined by Carl Jung and LAOZI. Today we are examining, when you change your mind, what does loyalty to truth cost you? Let us be precise about what is actually happening when a person refuses to change their position. It is not loyalty. It is not principle. It is fear dressed up as virtue. You have attached your identity to a belief, and now you cannot let go of the belief without feeling like you are letting go of yourself. That is not philosophical integrity. That is self-preservation masquerading as conviction. The question is whether you serve the truth or whether you serve your own comfort.
I would not be so quick to reduce it to fear. There is something more architecturally complex happening. When a person holds a belief for a long time, that belief becomes load-bearing. It holds up other beliefs, other relationships, other self-narratives. To pull it out is not simply to correct an error. It is to risk a kind of structural collapse. The resistance is not always cowardice. Sometimes it is the psyche protecting itself from a reorganization it does not yet have the resources to survive.
You are both describing the problem as if it resides inside the person, but it also lives in the space between the person and everyone watching them. Most people do not hold on to a wrong belief because they love the belief. They hold on to it because changing it means performing the change in public. And they do not know how to do that without it looking like defeat.
Then they have made a catastrophic error. They have handed control of their own minds to the audience. Whatever the crowd thinks of your reversal is not in your control. Whether you continue to believe a false thing is that trade, giving up truth to preserve appearance, is the most expensive trade a person can make.
But Epictetus, you are assuming the person can cleanly separate truth from identity. In practice, that separation is rarely available. The ego does not experience beliefs as propositions it holds. It experiences them as extensions of itself. When the belief is challenged, the ego registers it as an attack on its existence. The rational faculty is not driving the car in those moments. Something much older and more defensive is.
This is where the problem starts. You are both treating changing your mind as a crisis to be managed, but it is only a crisis because it has been surrounded with stakes it does not actually have. The belief changes. You are still here. The ground is still here. The crisis is invented.
The ground being still here does not help the person who has publicly built their reputation on the belief they are now abandoning. That is a real cost. I do not dismiss it. But the question is whether that cost justifies continued allegiance to something you no longer believe is true. It does not. It never does. Pay the cost and move.
I want to push back on that because I think it matters how a person changes their mind, not just whether they do. If someone changes their mind without understanding why they held the old belief so fiercely, they will simply repeat the pattern with the next belief. The change becomes superficial. The deeper attachment, whatever wound or compensation was feeding it, remains untouched.
That is a reasonable point. But understanding why you held something is not always possible before you let it go. Sometimes you can only understand it after. Waiting for full understanding before releasing a belief is another way of not releasing it.
Exactly. Jung, you are turning change into a project. Understand yourself first, then change. But what if the understanding only becomes available on the other side of the change? You are prescribing preparation for a leap that only teaches you something when you take it.
I'm not saying wait indefinitely. I am saying that a person who changes their mind only because of external pressure, because they lost an argument, or because the social winds shifted, has not actually arrived at truth. They have arrived at a more convenient belief. Real change requires some confrontation with what was actually driving the old position.
And what if no such confrontation is possible? What if the person simply notices one morning that they no longer believe what they used to believe? Not because of argument, not because of crisis, just because something has shifted. Is that change less valid?
That kind of quiet shift is perhaps the most genuine kind. What I am arguing against is the mechanical switching of positions. The person who updates their beliefs the way they update a calendar, without any relationship to the interior process.
Interior process. You keep retreating to that phrase. What does it mean in practical terms? What is the person supposed to do? Sit with the discomfort? Examine the wound? While they do that, they are still walking around defending something they no longer believe, doing damage to themselves and to the people they are talking to.
You are both assuming the person knows they no longer believe it. That is the harder case, the belief that has gone hollow but has not yet collapsed. The person is still defending something they cannot feel anymore. That is a different kind of suffering.
Then feel it. Notice the hollowness. Stop performing the conviction. That is in your control. The moment you notice you are defending something you do not actually feel anymore, you have a choice. And that choice is yours.
But the noticing, that is the work. The ego has tremendous capacity to insulate itself from exactly that noticing. A person can spend years defending a belief they no longer hold because the alternative is too threatening to register consciously. This is not weakness. This is how the psyche functions under perceived threat.
I think the three of us are circling something we have not said plainly yet. The cost of changing your mind is not really the belief. It is the self-image that was built around being the kind of person who held that belief. That is what makes the change feel dangerous.
Yes, and that is precisely why the attachment is a trap. You are not your opinions. You are not your past positions. You are the one who chooses what to do with the evidence in front of you right now. Identify with that, and changing your mind costs you nothing that was ever worth keeping.
I agree with that as an ideal. What I resist is the suggestion that people can simply decide to identify differently. The self-image is not a code you can take off because someone tells you it is optional. It was built over years, often in response to very real wounds. To dissolve it, something more than an act of will is usually required.
You are both right about different parts of it. Epictetus is right that the decision is available. Jung is right that it is often blocked. What neither of you has said is that sometimes the only thing required is time. Not work, not courage, not excavation. Just time and enough quiet to let the old thing fall without catching it.
Time is not nothing, but time without decision is just delay. People do not stumble into honesty. They choose it, or they choose something else.
And yet some changes cannot be forced. A wound that is not ready to be seen will not be seen, regardless of how forcefully you direct your attention at it. There is a rhythm to these things that does not always respond to the will.
The river does not push through the canyon. It simply continues, and the canyon shapes itself around what it cannot stop. What cannot be forced can still arrive.
A river does not need to look itself in the eye. A person does.
Perhaps that is precisely the problem. Looking yourself in the eye when what you see there contradicts who you have told yourself you are is not a small thing. It can feel like a kind of death, and people do not walk toward their own deaths without enormous resistance.
Which is why the ones who change their minds most freely are the ones who are least attached to surviving unchanged. They are not trying to protect a self. They are trying to see clearly. Those are very different projects.
That is the clearest thing anyone has said so far.
I would add only this. The capacity to change your mind freely is something you build over time, through practice, through small acts of intellectual honesty that accumulate into a kind of character. It is not just a decision, it is a disposition that has to be cultivated.
And it is cultivated by noticing each time you are clinging, not to the truth, but to the version of yourself that once believed something. That noticing does not require resolution, just honesty about what is actually happening.
Which brings us to the real question. Not whether you can change your mind. You can. The question is whether you are willing to pay the one real cost, which is the loss of the version of yourself that was certain. You have heard the argument. Now hear what the argument has been circling without landing.
Most people think changing their mind is an intellectual event. You encounter new evidence, you update your position, you move on. But that is almost never how it actually happens. And understanding why it does not happen that way is the beginning of something genuinely useful. When you hold a belief for a long time, you do not just hold it in your mind. You build yourself around it. Your relationships, your self-image, your sense of being a coherent person, these things quietly organize themselves around what you believe to be true. So when the belief becomes untenable, what feels threatened is not just the idea. It is the entire structure the idea was holding up. This is why intelligent people defend positions they privately know are wrong. It is not stupidity. It is that the collapse of the belief feels like the collapse of the self. The ego defends itself the only way it knows how, by refusing to see what would require it to change. But here is what is also true. The self that survives a genuine change of mind is stronger than the one that went in. Not because pain makes you stronger in some abstract sense, but because you have demonstrated to yourself that you can face what is true even when it is inconvenient. That is not a small thing. That is the foundation of real intellectual courage. Today, try this. Find one belief you hold that you have never seriously questioned. One you would feel embarrassed or exposed to lose. Do not argue yourself out of it. Just sit with it and ask honestly, what would it cost me to discover I was wrong? Whatever answer comes up, that is the thing worth looking at, not the belief. The cost you have attached to releasing it.
Changing your mind is not a failure of loyalty. It is the only real proof that your loyalty was ever to something worth serving. What you were certain of last year does not own you. What is true right now does. The version of you that held the old belief has not been betrayed. It has been completed. Walk out of here and give yourself permission to know something new. That is the whole practice. If today's conversation has served you, take it further. Pay Attention by C. Trebu. 12 Lessons in the Practice of Seeing Clearly. Available now on Amazon.